It's game day. That's right. More football action happening tonight. Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. We got a lot to get into today, but it is week 2 of the NFL preseason kicking off tonight. Caroline, with a matchup that you know I am all in on. My beloved Raiders taking on the Houston Texans preseason week 2. What are we looking for? Fernando last week got everybody's a little bit excited. Like everybody's just got a little bit of hype. Now we've seen joint practices for the last few days between the Raiders and the Texans. What are we looking for from Fernando tonight?
Doesn't have to be anything razzle-dazzly. Doesn't have to be anything overly sexy. He had a good debut last week in the preseason, enough to be like, yeah, okay, like he looks like an NFL quarterback. He looks like the progressions that he's going through, he feels confident. He was taking some snaps from under center, which is the graduation that he needed to make from Indiana to the NFL level. So we saw some good in the first week. So just continue on that. The first game jitters are out of the way. You've already gotten the first one under your belt. So do you look that much more confident going out there? Does Fernando Mendoza maybe clean up a few of the mistakes that he made in week 1? And look, he did make some mistakes in week 1, and that's fine. You should be making mistakes in your NFL debut. But the only important thing that you can do after making mistakes is learning from them and not making those mistakes again. So what I want to see is nothing crazy. I don't need to see Fernando Mendoza go out there and play 4 full quarters and throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. I don't need that. Nobody needs that. Fernando Mendoza doesn't need that. What he needs to do is go out there and show another level of comfort, another level of confidence, and to go out there and just look like he belongs as an NFL starting quarterback. Just continue to make those progressions and continue to develop.
As we sit today right now, Fernando Mendoza's already playing with house money because in week 1, he looked good. And that was enough to give everybody at least a moment to take a big sigh of relief and say, you know what? He does look like he belongs. Sure, I want to see Fernando go out and continue to do the things that we saw in week 1 as far as reading the defense, getting through everything quickly, where you watch his footwork and the resets, all the things that Dan Orlovsky talked to us about what you can actually look for from young quarterbacks. Go check it out on YouTube. But also, I think something needs to be acknowledged here. Hope has already been born for the Raiders and Fernando Mendoza. Look, the expectation within the organization this year has been from day one, whether fans love this or not, that Kirk Cousins would start the majority, if not all, of this rookie season. So if you are the Raiders organizationally, you knew there was a chance that you wouldn't even see Fernando post the preseason on the field in any meaningful time. Now, the fact that he's already looked so good in one game gives everybody a little bit extra hope. But I want to remind people where the Raiders have been at the quarterback position for a very long time. I'm almost 50. I am 49 years old, right? So I don't remember in 1980 when the Raiders drafted Mark Wilson in the first round of the draft. I don't remember that. I was 3. I vaguely remember who Mark Wilson was. For the rest of my lifetime, there have been a total of 3 quarterbacks ever selected in the first round by my beloved Raiders. Todd Marinovich in 1991, Jamarcus Russell, one of the biggest busts of all time, and Fernando Mendoza. Think about that. For all the problems they've had at the quarterback, they've only gone in the first round to try and address that problem 3 times in my lifetime that I can remember, and I'm almost 50. So when you start talking about the drug of hope, the drug of hope comes from a fan base that's not used to seeing their team draft quarterback in the first round, from a fan base that's not used to seeing that quarterback work out even when they are drafted in the first round, and from a fan base that's not used to seeing this quick level of professionalism from anybody selected in the first round. So, frankly, Fernando Mendoza has already won in the court of public opinion. That's big. I don't want to see him regress tonight, but frankly, even if he does, Kirk Cousins is likely going to be the starter in week 1. Tonight's just about more infusion of hope in a fan base, and that's a beautiful place to be. That's one of the victories you get of only being week 2 in a preseason for the team that's probably not going to be all that great this year. So Fernando needs to show something, but there are other quarterbacks who absolutely have far more pressure going into this weekend than Fernando. Who's under more pressure in your mind this weekend? Shedeur against the Bills for the Browns, or Tua against the Colts for the Falcons? Who's under more pressure?
I think it's Shedeur. And not that Tua doesn't have pressure, because Tua was getting clowned last week before he went out there for 3 series and put up a total of 17 yards. Like, Tua needs to do more. Tua is under the microscope, and Tua is fighting for a starting job. That adds pressure. But I think there's a certain amount of pressure that's alleviated from Tua, understanding that he has the benefit of the doubt of being a starting quarterback in the National Football League for several years, and he is the favorite to win the job. That Michael Penix Jr. is still dealing with an injury, so Tua's path to being a starter and finding another starting job in the NFL is much clearer than it is for Shedeur's. Shedeur is fighting an uphill battle right now from all of the talk and propaganda that's coming out of Browns camp. They've been soft launching Deshaun Watson since like March. They've had a plan in place, at least that's the way it seems to me, to make everybody comfortable with the idea of Deshaun Watson being the starting quarterback. I believe if the season started tomorrow, Deshaun would be starting for the Cleveland Browns. I believe that if you gave Todd Monken truth serum, he would say, yeah, this is Deshaun's job to lose. So I believe if Shedeur goes out there and just puts on an absolute stinker, his opportunity to not just start for the Browns, but to start for 31 other teams in the National Football League, those odds are shrinking drastically. I even think if Shedeur goes out there and balls, I still don't think that that's enough for him to take over the starting job. Do I agree with that? No, I do not. I have said on the show several times that if I was in charge in Brownland, I would make Shedeur Sanders the starting quarterback. But that's not the vibe that I'm getting out of Cleveland's camp. So I think Shedeur has a ton of pressure, already understanding that Shedeur has pressure no matter what. Because no matter what Shedeur does, whether he puts his pants on backwards, throws an interception, or has a great game, whatever Shedeur Sanders does is going to get talked about.
You're so right. And we had a guest last week, forgive me for not remembering off the top of my head, that's why I got to watch the show every day, that talked about the fact that first-round quarterbacks selected get 3 chances on average in the NFL as a starting quarterback somewhere. They get 3 opportunities in the league. So, I'm looking at Tua, who's now on his second opportunity, saying, okay, if this doesn't work out, this is still somebody that has had, yes. And shout out to Mike Goldfarb, our great producer, who reminds me it was Chase Daniel that told us this. Go check out our interview with Chase.
He would know.
Chase would know. 3 opportunities to start. So Tua is on his second opportunity. He'll likely get a third because there's a reason he was selected in the first round. Fair or not, that's what we do. Fair or not, Shedeur Sanders was not a first-round draft pick. I'm looking squarely at Shedeur, wondering how many opportunities he's going to get or even should get to be a starter in this league if he can't win this opportunity. This is no longer Kevin Stefanski's got it out for Shedeur Sanders. This is a second coaching regime that's coming in that's giving an equal opportunity to win the job and looks to be favoring a Deshaun Watson that we all know looks more washed than good. So now Shedeur couldn't beat out Deshaun. This isn't Shedeur couldn't beat out Drake May. This isn't Shedeur couldn't beat out a young star. Shedeur couldn't beat out Josh Allen or Lamar. It's none of those things. This is Shedeur can't beat out Deshaun Watson. If Shedeur comes out and plays poorly in this game, and that's what we have to talk about for pressure. If Shedeur comes out and even has the stat line he had in the last one, 6 of 11, no touchdowns, 1 pick that looks regrettable in the process, what does it mean for the future, the entire future of Shedeur Sanders? If he can't beat out Deshaun, then he's never going to be the permanent starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. He might get a game or 2 this year if Cleveland sucks, but he's not going to be the guy. He's not even going to get the chance to try and cement himself as the guy before they draft a quarterback next year. So then what? Are we just going to inevitably wait for the Browns to cut him and then hope that somebody else signs him and that somebody else is going to give him a third coaching staff to look at him? He was a 5th-round draft pick. The entire league passed on him, including the Cleveland Browns, 5 times before we even got to selecting his name. Now we're going to believe that suddenly this is the moment? Oh, all right, he couldn't get it done against Deshaun, couldn't get it done in Cleveland, but now he's going to get signed by insert team here now that's quarterback desperate, especially when next year, at least as we sit right now, looks like a stacked quarterback market in the draft. Why would you take a flyer on Shedeur if you could go get one of the best 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the estimations of some experts in next year's draft? So I think the pressure here isn't just on this season. It's not just on this moment. It's not just on this preseason game. I'm left to wonder if Shedeur can't win in this, can't look good in this opportunity, can't at least cement that he has a future in this league. If he goes out and plays like you know what in this preseason game, Pressure to me is what happens if it goes wrong. If it goes wrong, I don't know how Shedeur bounces back from this as a starter in the NFL long term, not just for the Cleveland Browns, but frankly, for anybody, Caroline.
But also, let's remember, Shedeur Sanders was a fifth-round pick. Is he better? Did he have a better draft profile than a fifth-round pick? Yeah, probably. I can agree with that, but that is still what he was. And Shedeur Sanders is the only fifth round pick I think I have ever talked about, as he has so much pressure on him to
Yeah.
prove to everybody that he can be a starting quarterback in the NFL. If Shedeur Sanders can't prove that, he wouldn't be the first fifth round quarterback to fizzle out and fall into a career as a backup.
Yeah, you're 1,000% right. I would just ask the audience, it's going to clap back to this, to be consistent. If you believe he should have been a fifth round pick, then there's no pressure on him. If you believe he never deserved to be a fifth round pick, then there's all the pressure on him, and we can't have it both ways. It's just part of what makes
True.
it wild covering Shedeur Sanders. All right, from draft picks in the NFL to draft picks in the WNBA, we got some big news yesterday. Unfortunate news for the number one overall pick of the 2026 draft. You see it there. Azzi Fudd will miss the remainder of the season as she undergoes an arthroscopic procedure to address ongoing knee soreness. The Wings announced she averaged 13.1 points across 30 games. This is not the news that Stars fans wanted in Dallas, that Azzi fans wanted. This just feels like it has taken the oxygen out of the room for somebody that had such high hopes coming into this season.
Yeah, it sucks in every single possible way. It really stinks for the Wings, who've been on a losing skid. They've lost 5 of their last 6. They've now dropped to 8th in the WNBA standings, which is that final playoff spot. And while the Wings still have a comfortable hold on that final spot in the postseason, there's still a lot of basketball left to be played. And so now you're losing somebody that you mentioned has been averaging 13 points per game, somebody that can shoot from literally anywhere on the court. Let's not forget, Azzi Fudd won the 3-point contest and WNBA All-Star Weekend, which, take that for what it's worth, but it is indicative of how great of a shooter Azzi Fudd really is. It sucks for her and for her development. It looked like the Wings were poised for a postseason push. That's great experience for a rookie to be able to feel the level of play, the physicality of the postseason, to go through the grind of the postseason, all of the attention and the eyeballs and the energies in the arenas in the postseason. That would have been great experience for Azzi that now she just doesn't get. Azzi has been plagued with knee injuries her entire career. It goes back to her time in high school when she tore her ACL. She tore her ACL again in her time at UConn. So here is just unfortunately yet another year that Azzi Fudd is suffering a knee setback. It is just unfortunate in every way possible. But I'm glad that she's taking the time that she needs. She's getting the care that she needs. And ideally, she can come back for her sophomore season as close to 100% as anyone can be.
Well, and you see it right there on that tweet, some of that knee injury history. This all factored into what had to be part of the decision-making process. And it is interesting to me that right now, and we've talked so much about the W on this show, but we also talk about equal coverage and fair coverage and the way that we talk about all sports. And maybe this is a lesson we should be taking to other sports as well. But it just feels to me, Caroline, like honestly, right now, in any other sport, there would be an outrage, a cry, a loud yelling from the masses of how did you take Azzi number 1 overall when Olivia at number 2 overall looks like an MVP candidate that could be doing something historic and rare in the W. To be a WNBA MVP in your rookie season is something we haven't seen since Candace did it. And all of a sudden, Olivia is in that conversation while Azzi's being shut down for a knee injury that could have been predicted looking at the past issues that she's had with knee soreness. So I do think while there are a ton of different variables to why it's playing out that way, there is going to be a roar that only gets louder every single day, every single week, and every single year if Olivia continues to dominate while Azzi is still trying to work out what her footing in the league looks like. It's only fair. We do it in football. We do it in men's basketball. We do it in every other sport. We have to do it in the W at some point too and look at it and say, my God, did the Stars make a mistake not selecting Olivia Miles?
Yeah, we absolutely can criticize the Wings. We absolutely can criticize the
Wings.
WNBA the same way that we criticize any other league and any other sport, any other team. But I will push back on that and say that Olivia Miles is a point guard. She is a true point guard, which was a need for the Minnesota Lynx. The Wings have a point guard, and her name is Paige Beckers, and she's a pretty darn good one, and one that they took with the #1 overall pick just the year before. Position has to matter. Chemistry has to matter. That's clearly something that Paige and Azzi have going back to their time at UConn. The other thing that I'll push back on is, do we think that if all things were the same, but Olivia Miles was the #1 overall pick and Azzi Fudd was the #2 overall pick, do we think Olivia would be having the same kind of season that she's having right now with the Lynx? The Lynx, a team that is consistently a championship contender, consistently finds themselves in the postseason, with head coach Cheryl Reeve, one of the most respected coaches in basketball, period, versus the Wings that are bringing in a new head coach in Jose Fernandez, a new system, a team that has been in the depths of the WNBA over the last couple of years. I think ecosystem and situation and circumstance has to matter. So I hear you. It is clear and it is obvious to look at what Olivia Miles has been doing this year versus now Azzi's season cut short. And it is easy to say, how in the world did they not take Olivia with the #1 overall pick? But I think nuance and context matters in that conversation.
And that is being consistent. By the way, sorry, WNBA fans. I don't know why I decided that it was an NHL team this morning with the Stars. I will acquiesce to my mistake with the Wings. My bad. I put two sports together. You're right. And we've been consistent in that on this show when we talk about things like Patrick Mahomes couldn't have just been drafted by the Bears for sure. But it doesn't stop Bears fans from constantly looking at it and saying, why didn't we draft Patrick Mahomes? It is an interesting spot to be in, certainly. In the meantime, all of our thoughts go to the recovery for Azzi. It is the best situation if Azzi and Olivia both become superstars for the league moving forward for sure. And, of course, there's plenty of time for Azzi to show the world why she was the first overall pick in the WNBA draft. All right, coming up, we're going to get to college football. We're going to figure out if we're fent in or fent out. See what we did there on some huge storylines in college football.
Losing Laramie Tunsil, top 3 left tackle in the NFL, it's a huge deal because now this offensive line goes from interesting to maybe bad. Now, Brandon Coleman, who's my X factor for them, he did start all of 2024, his rookie year, and they were one of the best offenses in the NFL that season. If you want to be this more, under center, deep drop back passing game, you're going to need your protection to be really good, as opposed to like we're in the gun and getting it out in the horizontal raid with Cliff Kingsbury. Who there tempts you the most, and is it Drake May because your heart is a flutter still for Drake May?
It is Drake May. If you draft Drake May, you ask yourself, are we still on the front 9 with A.J. Brown? Is he going to win the breakup with the Eagles? Is Romeo Doubs, did they overpay for him and overslot him, or is he really an impact player? It's going to hurt me when I don't draft Drake May this year. I don't think I'm going to do it very often. I may not even do it at all.
The thing with Derrick Henry, which I really admired with him with the Titans for sure. You see 22 on the field, you know he's getting the ball. You know Derrick Henry's coming. Derrick Henry was the focal point of that offense for years. But guess what? Still, nobody stopped him. With Derrick Henry, he's another year older, but he does not look another year closer to falling off. He does not look another year closer to slowing down. And he seems like he can go for as long as he wants to.
Darian Mensah was not the only player who left Duke that day to go to Miami. His best receiver, Cooper Barkate, went with him. He was the best receiver in the Ivy League at Harvard in 2024. He graduates from Harvard. He hops in the portal, goes to Duke, and has 1,100 receiving yards at Duke last year. Well, now he goes to Miami.
Harvard to Miami. How can you not love this sport right now? This is fantastic.
Colorado's prime effect is wearing off fast for TV networks. ESPN viewership for games showing Deion Sanders' Buffaloes have fallen 67% since 2023. Can Coach Prime work his magic to stem the program's TV slide? We're going to continue our preview of the college football season. If you watch this show at all, you know how much we love college football. We will be talking about it all year long. All right, so going to play a little game. Fent in, as in Caroline Fenton, or fent out. All right, we'll take some stories, figure out if we're fent in, fent out. Are you fent in or fent out on Deion turning things around in Colorado?
I think that the turning things around can be interpreted in several different ways. So I'll clarify. Do I think that Deion Sanders can turn around last season where they won 3 football games and they can have a better year this year? Yes, fent in on that entirely. Deion Sanders was dealing with a lot personally last year. Remember, he was dealing with a cancer diagnosis. He talked about how he was wearing Depends on the sidelines. That's a lot that can weigh on a person. And to also game plan every week and recruit and go through the transfer portal and be prime. So I do think that being behind him matters. I think Juju Lewis coming into his second year, I think that matters. He has a full year of college football under his belt. So I think expecting this year to be better than a 3-9 season last year, definitely fent in on that. Can Deion Sanders turn Colorado around into a legitimate CFP or championship contender? I'm fent out on that one. It doesn't look like Colorado has done anything to upgrade the offensive line over the last couple of years. And that might be one of the worst offensive lines I've ever seen in my entire life. And oh, yeah, by the way, they just lost their left tackle, Jordan Seaton, to the transfer portal. So last year, the offensive line didn't look great. Last year, it didn't look like Juju Lewis made big time developments that maybe we would expect a first time starter to make. We heard Juju Lewis say, like, yeah, we don't study defenses at Colorado. What? What in the world? I do think that there is enough just pure talent on Colorado's roster that they can win more than 3 games. I'm just fent out on the idea that Colorado can recapture the magic that they had with Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. Also, given that the top of the Big 12 is going to be really competitive. BYU looks like a team that's poised and ready to make another run for the CFP. Shout out to our producer, Emmy Franks. Utah, I don't think, is going to take any steps back without Kyle Whittingham. I think Arizona State is going to find themselves right back into the conversation as well. I think it's just too top heavy in the Big 12 for Colorado to break in and make a run.
So I've spent some time around Juju Lewis before he got into college. When he was in high school, spent some time around him. I expected more from Juju, and I think that's a big part of this conversation we have to have on why I'm fent out on Colorado becoming relevant. And that's the way I'll say it. To your point, they can win more than 3 games. Can they become relevant? Yeah. My answer to that is no. Juju was supposed to be a bit of a savior and one of those guys that walks in and day one has you. Now, I know it's not always that simple, but even his conversations, as you mentioned, talking about not breaking down defenses and the things he's had to learn, all of these conversations just make me look around and say, what is the thing that's the cheat code that's going to take you from 3 wins to 9 wins, to 8 wins, to that level of everybody's paying attention? I don't think they have it. And peek behind the curtain in a really honest moment. When I first started with Yahoo, part of my job was to do videos reacting to college football. Colorado had become so big in the beginning of my time at Yahoo after I left ESPN that we had to wait all the way until 2 a.m. Eastern time for Colorado games to end so that we could include them in every wraparound, because we knew that all we had to do was show a little bit of a highlight, say one line about Colorado, and all of a sudden the numbers on the videos would jump. Why? Because everybody cared. We couldn't, in good conscience, do a video recap of college football at 9 p.m. because we knew if we didn't include Colorado, we weren't telling the entire story of what Saturday was in college football. That's how important the year was with Travis Hunter and Shedeur and Deion together. That's how important it was to the entire consciousness of college football. It's not that anymore. And I don't think there's anything Deion can do now, short of getting this team into the college football playoff conversation, that will make people pay attention to that level. We have to, at some point, acknowledge that while Deion is a sensation, it wasn't just Deion. It was a Voltron effect. It wasn't just one. It was Deion with Shedeur, with the Heisman Trophy winner and Travis Hunter all at once, that created a sensation that took the world by storm. Deion by himself is like asking one member of One Direction or one member of the Beatles to be as big as their band was. This feels to me like a lot like Justin Timberlake, not as good as NSYNC was altogether. I'm just saying it can be popular. It's just not going to be as popular as it once was. All right, so I'm fent out on that. Now I've used wild music analogies. Let's continue the fun here as we go through fent in, fent out on this. Former Baylor head coach Art Briles sat down with Brett McMurphy on On3 for his most extensive interview since he was fired. He's in his 2nd season with D2 Eastern New Mexico. Are you fent in or fent out on a second chance for Art Briles?
I am fent out. There are just certain things that you can't come back from and certain things that you shouldn't come back from. I think if you don't know the entire Art Briles saga and controversy at Baylor, go ahead and do your own research there. I think when you are the leader of a program that was plagued with as much controversy, as much gross as Baylor was in the Art Briles era, albeit he won a lot of football games there. I'm not denying that. But there was too much off the field grossness that I just don't think that Art Briles can come back from. I also don't think that there is any kind of program, a D1 program, a big time college football program that would sign up for that controversy. Is the juice really worth the squeeze there? Is Art Briles really that great of a coach that you're going to sign up to answer all of the questions that are inevitably going to come when you bring someone like that into your organization? I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on this. I'm going to add one more element to it. Never want to be an ageist, but it's worth pointing out that Art Briles is 70 years old. He will be 71 in December of this year. So if you bring him in as a head coach, you're bringing in somebody that, frankly, you're only going to have for a limited amount of time as your head coach. You're going to have a succession plan almost from day one. It's not worth any of that. And by the way, when you are a part of programs that do terrible, horrible, awful things, maybe you just shouldn't get a second chance at that level. I am a big believer that everybody deserves a second chance in life. Recidivism is important. But as I say all the time, second chance in life doesn't mean a second opportunity for a dream job. There are certain things that you do that just simply put a stamp on your career that shouldn't let you be in charge of programs that have young men everywhere. I think Art Briles has done that. I don't think he deserves another opportunity. I am fent out on Art Briles standing on a sideline. Frankly, I'm fent out on him standing on the sideline in eastern New Mexico. So I don't think he deserves any other bigger chance than that. How about that? Speaking of disgraced former coaches getting a second chance, Bobby Petrino is the offensive coordinator at North Carolina. They've named their quarterback for Week 1's game against TCU in Ireland. It's veteran transfer Billy Edwards Jr. Fent in or fent out at this choice at quarterback?
I'm fent out, and I honestly probably would have been fent out no matter what on whichever quarterback they named as the starter, whether it was Billy Edwards or Miles O'Neill, because I've at least seen plenty of reports from practice that said neither of these guys look good. That Billy Edwards really struggled in some scrimmages. Miles O'Neill just wasn't really clicking with this offense so much so that they were even entertaining the idea of starting a true freshman that's never even played in college football before. Billy Edwards has been kind of a journeyman in college football. He's played a few years at Maryland, played last year at Wisconsin. Very rarely will you see a guy who has not become a household name, so all of a sudden become one in his 6th year in college football, in his 3rd stop at a school who's gotten the most attention it's gotten in a long time because of the head coach's girlfriend and what she's wearing on the sidelines. So I'm out on the quarterback choice. Would have been out no matter what. I'm out on the Tar Heels altogether. I just don't think Bill Belichick gets it. I don't think he gets the college game. Last year, that was clear and obvious whenever North Carolina just kind of gave up at times. And also, by the way, North Carolina has a brutal schedule. They go to Clemson and then host Notre Dame in back-to-back weeks. They go to Duke, who won the ACC last year. They play Miami, and then they go on the road to UConn, who on God's green earth scheduled a home-and-home with UConn. Weird. And then they finish out the season with Louisville and Virginia, who won double-digit games last season. I'm out on North Carolina altogether.
I just need to stress this with Billy. I hope he comes out and has a great career. Great. As you mentioned, 4 years he's played college football, 3 years at Maryland, 1 at Wisconsin. He was a starter for 1 year of that. If you take the 1 year, 2024 Maryland away, the rest of his career in college football, I have it up in front of me, he has a total of 45 attempts. 45 attempts outside of 1 year as a starter. So now I want to rewind all the way back to when Bill Belichick was named head coach at North Carolina. And I want to go back to what people were trying to force down your throats that don't cover a lot of college football. The answer we kept getting is, oh my God, everybody's going to want to go play for North Carolina because they're going to have the opportunity to play for Belichick. Okay, how's that working for you now? Billy Edwards, that opportunity? I don't think so. I think this is a reminder that nobody gives a damn about Bill Belichick or North Carolina football. One more real quick, we'll get in here. College football expert Andy Staples very much in on this culinary creation by the offensive line at Effingham County High School. It's a PB&J with a honey bun in the middle. Caroline, you fent in or fent out on the PB&J with the honey bun in the middle?
I've never been more fent in on anything in my life. This looks incredible. This looks like a delicacy in offensive line culture. And I don't know if this makes me a genius or a fat kid at heart. Either way, though, my first thought wasn't, oh my gosh, ew, oh my gosh, all that sugar. My first thought was, you got to put that on the griddle. You got to butter up the griddle and you got to toast that thing. You got to get the peanut butter nice and melty. You got to get the ooey gooey frosting of the honey bun a little soft. Like, that's really good, but you can do better.
Look, that's a Southerner, and it's like, put that thing on the grill. We're gonna be good. Look, I love
Put butter on
the
it.
Big E. Yeah, no, I love the Big E, the multi-state fair in New England, where they fry basically everything. But at the Big E, they have all like the Krispy Kreme donut burgers. All the fairs have those. That's what they should have done here. I didn't need the bread on the outside. Take the honey bun, boys. Split the honey bun in half. PB&J in the middle of the honey bun. Grill the honey bun. You don't need the white bread on the outside of it. You are just eating the PB&J in the honey bun. Griddle is the right choice. We're here to help all the fat kids get even fatter. One step at a time. All right. We'll keep breaking down all the college football news you need. But coming up next, the latest breakdown on what to expect from the chaos in LA comes from Trey Kerby joining us next.
We're going to talk about Alan Graves, who looks like a hit of a draft prospect for the Toronto Raptors. Looks sensational, man.
I thought the shot was there. You talked about the percentage, but also most of the shots were off of the catch, above the break. Just a good sign in terms of his positioning.
And I think for the Toronto Raptors, a team that already has so much size, adding Alan Graves to this, it almost feels like some of those championship Raptors teams.
I can't predict the future, and I know that it's a long process, and it's not just my decision. But at the same time, I'm going to give the doctors and the coaches every single opportunity they can to let me be out there week one. And I don't want to miss that game because that's the team that won the division while we were gone. And you want to be out there and ready to go with your teammates. And so hopefully the doctors and the coaches give me the green light, and I'm able to go out there with my guys and compete against one of the best teams in the league.
They have to have better details on the back end because that was their greatest qualm last year, especially on third down. They were just a mess. Bad tackling, bad angles, slow to react. And this is a great stat from Next Gen Stats. First opportunity depth of tackle. So the first time they're able to tackle somebody, what's the depth of tackle? Theirs was the second highest in the league last year, 4.9. The Cowboys were the only ones higher. So they were late to react. So there was a perfect stat to match the eye test there. But that just has to get better. More than anything, that's what I'm focusing on with this defense.
I know people talk trash about the PFL and say, oh, because you're in the PFL, you're nothing. The level of fighters in the PFL are just as high as the people in the UFC. And the reason you don't understand that, the reason you don't think so is because you're a casual. You're not a true MMA fan. You don't understand the game as much as you hope or you think you do. If I ever gave a damn about what somebody thought up until this moment, I would not be the champion.
The Cavs, Nuggets, and Clippers have agreed on a trade to send Peyton Watson to Cleveland, Max Strus to LA, and an unprotected 2031 Cavs first-round pick, 2032 Kings second-rounder to Denver per Shams. And then, right out of the gates, Peyton Watson signs a new 4-year, $88 million deal. We're going to break it all down. Joining us now, Trey Kerby, co-host of No Dunks, Inc. Finally, a guy named Watson that the good people of Cleveland can get pumped about. What do you make of the trade?
Well, I think the Cavs easily won this trade. Getting somebody for Max Strus, a good player. He was actually pretty decent, I thought, for Cleveland in the playoffs. But Cleveland has been looking for a young, athletic wing like Peyton Watson for a while. They tried Strus. They've tried Dean Wade. Jalen Tyson has got some time. But Peyton Watson seems to have some serious upside, and obviously the Cavs agree. They traded a valuable pick in the future. They're giving him $22 million a year. but it completes their starting lineup. 1 through 5, I think they're really strong. I think the fit's going to be a little different. Watson has basically one season of being a 40% three-point shooter, but if he can shoot the ball well, that gives a lot of space to the big guys inside. We know Mitchell's going to perform well on the perimeter. I assume they bring back James Harden. It also feels like Cleveland needed to do something to keep pace in the Eastern Conference, right? We've seen Philadelphia got better. Boston's going to be different. Detroit probably will still be good. If the Raptors are able to continue with the Kawhi Leonard trade, they got better. Cleveland needed to make some kind of move. They waited for LeBron. It didn't work out. They got Hazonia instead, but now they really got a starting 3 in Peyton Watson. He's only going to be 24 at the start of the season. He can grow with Evan Mobley. I think they'll be great on defense. I think they'll be good on offense. This is a team that went to the conference finals last season, and they got better in the offseason. So I think a huge win for the Cavs.
Let's look at the other side of this trade, though, and go to Denver, because Jokic still has yet to sign his max extension to stay with the Nuggets, and they essentially gave up a great player for a 2031 first. You just said that Cleveland won the trade, and I would absolutely agree with you. What's Denver's plan here?
That's a great question. I think that's probably something that Nikola Jokic has to be asking when he wakes up this morning. Since winning the title in 2023, it's basically just been guys leaving the Nuggets. Peyton Watson is the latest. Last year, the Nuggets finally built a bench that wasn't losing, and that was like a win for them. Usually they were getting destroyed when the bench came in, but they signed Valanciunas last year. They signed Tim Hardaway Jr. last year. Peyton Watson took a step forward. Now all 3 of those guys are gone. I couldn't believe it when I saw the reports last night that Denver wasn't able to get an actual player back. Like, I thought they could have survived if Max Strus was coming to Denver to play alongside of the starting lineup that they've already got there. But really, they just got a guy for 2031. I think that's when my kids are graduating from high school, and one of them just started 6th grade this year. That's a long time to wait. I don't know that Nikola Jokic is going to be enthused by the way things have been going with the Nuggets. They lost in the first round last year, and they seem even shallower with hardly any sort of room to improve the team going forward. I do think the 2031 pick can be valuable in the future. If I'm a Nuggets fan, though, I'm hoping that they use that pick to perhaps attach to a Christian Brown contract or a Cam Johnson contract so that they can get somebody in this season who helps them get better, because they've fallen behind the Thunder. They've fallen behind the Spurs, and it feels like they're just dropping lower and lower in the hierarchy in the Western Conference.
Yeah, maybe I'm just a cynic with some of this, though, but it just feels like now that Giannis has been traded, we gotta seem to put our blinders onto, well, there's always a superstar that's unhappy. So now it's Jokic, right? Like, oh, Jokic hasn't signed the long-term deal. I don't know. There's a part of me, again, that looks at this and says, by not signing the long-term deal and waiting a year, he's going to make $80 million more. He can make more money playing in Denver than he can anywhere else. Like, are we really worried about Jokic in the future, or are we just finding something to be worried about with the superstar like we always do with one superstar every year?
You're right. Timing is everything. If this happens in the middle of July, is it as big of a freak out? I don't know. Jokic seems very content in Denver. He's basically said the entire time that, yeah, I'm waiting to sign the extension because it makes smart money sense for him to be able to sign a bigger, longer deal in the future. But still, he's a competitive guy. You see how excited he gets when his horses actually win a race overseas. Imagine the thrill he'll get from winning another championship in Denver. It just feels like they're getting farther and farther away. And the further he goes into his career alongside Jamal Murray, they just get more and more expensive. It gets harder and harder to build a real team around him. The starting 5 is still good in Denver. I think with the way Jokic plays and the way he makes his teammates better, they can still be a 50-win team. They can still be competitive. But it definitely feels like they've lost touch with the upper echelon in the West so far. I don't think that necessarily means that Jokic is going to ask out in the future. But anytime a team is getting worse and contracts are coming up, people are going to start circling. We saw Luka Doncic get traded to the Lakers out of nowhere. So, of course, Lakers fans are going to be asking their GM, whoever it might be in the future, to chase after Nikola Jokic. I hope he stays in Denver for the entirety of his career, but they got to give him a reason to stick around.
Obviously, trades are fun, but nothing in the NBA offseason has been more stunning than the sale of the Lakers, and nothing has been more dramatic than the theater that we're seeing unfold with the Buss siblings. Two-parter for you. What do you think happens with Jeannie Buss and her ownership, or at least partial ownership of the Lakers? And if you were Josh Kushner and Bob Iger, would you want Jeannie Buss part of the fold?
Look, it's never good when people are arguing which HBO drama your front office relates to. Is it Succession? Is it Game of Thrones? I don't know. I guess I lean more towards the Targaryen side of things since everybody has a name that starts with a J. What's going to happen? I don't know. It seemed like the Lakers were completely sold away from the Buss family, only for Jeannie to come over the top and dunk on all the other J's as well. This just seems like it's going to be something that takes place in a lot of courtrooms. We know the backroom drama between Jeannie and the rest of her siblings has existed for a long time and seemed to kind of only be under the radar while Dr. Jerry was still living. It's kind of been a disaster ever since. You can understand the siblings' point of view. They want to make a ton of money, especially since they're not the most famous of the Buss siblings. We'll see how that transpired. There must be a lot of language with regards to these add-on clauses and all this kind of stuff. It just seems like an unsettled time in LA right now. Would I want Jeannie Buss if I'm the new ownership group? I think I would. The Lakers have been a mom and pop organization, a family-run organization for nearly 50 years. Jeannie Buss learned from her father the way to deal with superstars, to deal with these huge personalities, to deal with the entertainment factor of owning the Lakers. I think that know-how and her standing around the league is beneficial to a new ownership group like Kushner and Iger.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned should Lakers fans be about how all of this impacts their ability to win a title in the next few years?
I think the biggest concern is that things that like Henry Abbott over at True Hoop had been adding. Where is all this money coming from if I'm the Lakers? One of their greatest advantages is the location, right? People want to play for the Lakers. They want to be taken care of by the Lakers. But if this team doesn't have as deep of pockets as everybody's saying, then it becomes harder to go into the second apron, to do the things that we assumed Mark Walter was going to do when he bought the Lakers. I think the bigger worry right now, we know that the Lakers are going to still be a good team. They got Luka Doncic locked in for a long time. They got Austin Reeves. We'll see how Walker Kessler is able to stabilize the defense. It's just a matter of they have had an advantage being in LA with a known ownership group for nearly 5 decades. As we've seen for multiple teams around the league, ownership is such a competitive advantage. If you've got a team that knows what they're doing, it really helps you out. We don't know yet exactly how Kushner and Iger are going to operate as Lakers. So I don't know. I would be a little uncertain if I'm a Lakers fan, just because this is the first transition in a long, long time for a team that has basically seen success for as long as the Buss family has been involved.
LA basketball continues to deliver because the Clippers just continue to find themselves in the headlines. And the most recent story is an ESPN article highlighting that the Clippers, there was an investigation that was done and the NBA found no wrongdoing by the Clippers. The NBA came out and said there are many inaccuracies with that report. Who do we trust in this situation?
I don't trust anybody in this situation. Maybe I would trust Uncle Dennis to get me a sponsorship deal. Seems like he was doing a good job on that side of things, but it's very unusual, I think, to see basically negotiation about an investigation taking place in the media. That's what it felt like to me when we first saw the ESPN report. It definitely felt like it was coming from the Clippers side, kind of sending a trial balloon of, yeah, maybe there won't be this very strict punishment that we saw with the Timberwolves back in the Joe Smith days. But then immediately Mike Bassett, the NBA, comes in and says, we are not done with our investigation. There are numerous and significant inaccuracies in the ESPN story. Obviously, things are still up in the air right now. Just from the reporting by Pablo Torre, by ESPN, at the very least, it doesn't seem like there's a smoking gun like there was in the Joe Smith case. They had a literal email detailing their plans. Bad idea. If the Clippers don't have that sort of an email, maybe they're able to skate by. But I have to imagine with the way this is held over the NBA for almost a year at this point, Adam Silver is going to have to do something. There's that clause that exists in the CBA that basically says if it looks like salary cap circumvention, we can say it's salary cap circumvention. Maybe that means they can't punish them quite as harshly as they wanted, but there's got to be something done, because when there's this much smoke, there's got to be at least a little bit of fire.
I just feel like we all need economics degrees at this point. Between the salary cap, the aprons, and now salary cap circumvention, we all need economics degrees. You guys can check them out. No Dunks Inc. is the podcast. Great work there. As always, follow him on social media at Trey Kerby. Trey, really appreciate your time and your expertise. Thanks for hanging out with us, man.
Thanks for talking. Really fun to actually talk about the NBA. Things happened this week. How exciting.
Facts. It's amazing. We appreciate Trey for answering the bat phone for us. Coming up, U.S. Open's right around the corner. Patrick McEnroe going to join us. We'll get his thoughts on what to look for.
And that's really what we get into with the first quarterback I want to talk about, Sam Levitt, transferring from Arizona State over to LSU. You're going to plug Sam Levitt into that system with his ability to create outside of structure, his ability to get yards on the ground. I think you're going to see him really outperform where he's being drafted right now. In a Power 4 only format, I have him as QB5 right now.
We're in a very, very bad time for the perception of college football. There's a fatigue point that people keep debating. Is it because of NIL? Is it because of portal? Is it because of what's going on in Congress? And I think the average consumer, and there's still more average consumers that listen and watch this show than there are industry insiders. There is a fatigue point with perpetual revision of the postseason format. People aren't as stupid as the individuals in this industry seem to think that they are.
Who is your breakout candidate for this year?
Kind of think Isaiah Likely with the New York Giants is a really good candidate this year. Kind of wide receiver room that could rotate a little bit and be useful players, but they don't, to me, have one dynamic. Even Fields, who I like, I don't know that he's gonna be like a dynamic guy that right off the bus, round 3 rookie, leads the team in targets. I think that could actually be Isaiah Likely. Tight ends on their second contracts have been good bets to make. I think Likely is a good bet to make this year.
How is your recovery going?
It's going good. You know, it's a long process. I think that's what I've learned throughout this entire thing. And so all I can do is be as great as I can be every single day. You know, it's tough. You have to just maximize that day and then slowly get better and better as the year goes on. And so just having the guys back and getting to be back on the football field will kind of get me going in order to get ready for the season.
Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz will both show up to the U.S. Open without having played in Canada or Cincinnati. Since the beginning of the Masters format in 1990, no man has ever won the U.S. Open without playing at least one of those 2 events. An interesting nugget. For more on this and everything we can expect from the U.S. Open, Patrick McEnroe joins us. He's the host of the Mac Daddy Show. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Patrick, appreciate your time. Let's start with those two brightest young stars in men's tennis. Any concerns that you have about them being healthy enough to compete for the U.S. Open title?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And yeah, there's huge concerns for both of them, for the tennis world. They're the 2 biggest draws in tennis, particularly Alcaraz. I mean, he lights it up wherever he goes. I'd be more concerned about Alcaraz coming into the U.S. Open, having not played, simply because he hasn't played since the spring with a wrist injury. He missed the French Open. He missed Wimbledon. So to come back after such a long layoff would be tricky. Now, for Sinner, he'll come in having not played those 2 big events, of course, that you mentioned this summer, but he did win Wimbledon, and he did play a lot the first half of the year. Had a shock exit at Roland Garros because of the heat, which got to him there. So he's tried to address that. The heat could be a factor in New York, as it often is at this time of year for the U.S. Open. But they're still the 2 best players in men's tennis by far. But I say more question marks for Alcaraz if he does show up in New York, which, by the way, is still at this moment a big if.
So which of these 2 players' absences would be a bigger loss for the tournament as a whole, and why?
Well, I think Alcaraz would be a bigger loss for the buzz that he creates. You know, as I said, he's the most electric player in tennis at the moment. Sinner's been the better player overall this year, having won Wimbledon and having not been injured throughout the year. But Alcaraz is someone that people just want to watch him play no matter who he's playing, no matter what the score is. A little bit like Roger Federer was in his prime. By the way, I'm going to throw out a bone to the Tennis Hall of Fame because I'm the president there. Federer will be inducted into the Hall of Fame next weekend, so we're looking forward to that. But Alcaraz is sort of taken that baton of being that electrifying player, the player that everyone around the world wants to see. So it'd be a bigger loss for the tournament draw-wise, but it would probably be a bigger loss if Sinner doesn't play, meaning the other players will feel, wait a second, I've got a chance to make a big run here and maybe steal another major like Alexander Zverev did in Paris when he won his first French Open. So that door could open for some American guys like Ben Shelton, like Francis Tiafoe, like Taylor Fritz. Those guys could see, hey, this may be the opportunity for me to win a major if both of those two guys or even one of those two is not in New York.
You just listed several names. Who is best positioned to take advantage of opportunity if these guys aren't in the field?
Yeah, I think definitely those three American guys would be in the mix. Tommy Paul would be another guy who's played well on hard courts and in majors before. Rafael Shedeur, who's a young player from Spain, who's had a breakout season this year on tour. Of course, you got to put Zverev in there again, even though he just lost yesterday in Cincinnati to Tommy Paul in a tough three-setter. He's got that monkey off his back where he's finally won a major. So he's been rock solid in big tournaments over the last couple of years. You'd put him in there. I'd throw a couple other younger guys in there, like João Fonseca, the Brazilian superstar who's got a huge game. And if he can just get a little bit stronger physically, mentally, he's got the kind of firepower that can match those big two, Sinner and Alcaraz. And Jakub Menšík from the Czech Republic. There's a bunch of really good young players coming up. Arthur Fils from France. A lot of guys that would look at this opportunity and say, wait a second, why not me?
You mentioned the Americans. An American has not won a major singles title since Andy Roddick did it in 2003. Quite a substantial drought there. How big of a priority is it for American tennis to get back into that winning ways?
Well, you know, I've been hearing that stat for a long time, and we're all hoping that someone can get it done. We in the American media and just as American tennis fans. So it would be huge. It's not going to affect necessarily, how successful the U.S. Open is as an event. These big major events have become so big, so economically viable, really no matter who's in it. It helps if you get some local players that get into the final rounds. That helps with the TV ratings always. But I would give Ben Shelton the best chance. He's a guy, you just saw his picture before. There's Ben again. He's electrifying to watch as well. He's got a monster serve. He's got a big-time personality. He loves to play on the big stage. Most importantly, though, what he's been able to do is shore up his return to serve game in the last 6 months or so, which helped him win up in Canada. Again, he defended the title up there, which was quite a feat to do that for him. He lost early in Cincinnati, but I'm not concerned about that because he had just come off the win in Canada. He's the guy that can get the crowd going. Francis Tiafoe as well. He's more of a veteran. He's been in a couple semifinals in New York before as well. He lights up the crowd. So if one of those two guys makes a run, that will create a lot of interest from the American standpoint.
What's created this drought for American tennis on the men's side?
There's three names. First of all, Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, those guys. And there's a couple other guys that snuck in over the years, like Andy Murray and Stan Wawrinka. But for the most part, the United States, are in the same situation that pretty much every other country's been in the last 25 years. And then you get Sinner and Alcaraz, and we thought there'd be a window where multiple players would maybe sneak through. Guys like Zverev, who finally did win one. Medvedev, who won a U.S. Open a couple of years ago. Tsitsipas, Rublev, all these guys that thought, okay, once those big three retire or slow down, in the case of Djokovic, which he's done, that would be their opportunity. But then along comes Sinner, along comes Alcaraz, sort of elevating the entire men's game to a whole nother level. And they had a run there until the French Open happened this year, where they dominated the majors in the last 2.5 years. It was just between one of the two of them that was winning every single major for over 2 years. So they've taken the game to another level, and now it's up to these rest of these players to elevate their games to try to just compete with them in the majors in best of 5 sets, where it's much more difficult to pull off an upset when it's best of 5. We learned that through the Big 3 era. You see the upsets happen a little bit more in the best 2 out of 3 tournaments, which are the normal ones that happen the course of the season, including this week in Cincinnati. But once you get to the majors, best of 5, biggest stages in tennis, if these guys are at their best, basically they've been unbeatable. So that's been the problem for American tennis. We've got a lot of really good players now. In fact, we have the most top 100 players on the men's side and the women's side of any other country. But when you haven't won a major, people want to say, what's wrong with American tennis? Well, there's a lot right with it because we, as I said, numbers wise, we have the most players, but we need that one player that can break through and win one. That would be very nice to see. And I would be very happy to see it, to not have to answer this question for another 20 some years.
I get it. I get it. But you mentioned the women's side. Let's go there. Arina Sabalenka is looking to become the first woman to win 3 straight US Open titles since Serena Williams did it. Are you taking Sabalenka or the field?
You know, I'd go with the field. I mean, Sabalenka just lost last night in Cincinnati. I think she's lost a little bit of her edge. You see there, she got upset last night. I watched the match, ended late last night in Cincinnati. I mean, she's one of the favorites, but I'm not going to say she's the odds-on favorite, the solid favorite. You got Coco Gauff. You've got Elena Rybakina, who won in Australia this year, beating Sabalenka in the final. You've got Iga Swiatek, who I think is playing some really good tennis this summer. She won in Canada. I like the way she's kind of retooled her game. So the women's tournament, I'm not going to say it's wide open, but it's a little more unpredictable generally than the men's tournament, especially if you have Sinner and Alcaraz healthy. But this is a turn. Last year, as you mentioned, Sabalenka won the U.S. Open for the second time. She hadn't won a major last year. So she sort of salvaged her year in New York. Can she do it again? Absolutely, she can. She still loves hard courts. She's still got the best overall record on hard courts in the last couple of years on the women's tour. But something's just a little amiss with her. And I saw that last night. The intensity, the motivation doesn't seem to be quite where it was. Maybe she's getting a little just too, I don't know, content with what she's done. But you have to put her up there as one of the favorites. She'll be the top seed as well.
All right, so social media sort of blew up a few days ago. Amanda Anisimova looked like maybe she was drinking a beer in the middle. What do we make of it? Was she drinking a beer during the match?
I think she was having some Red Bull there, is what I can understand. But yeah, it did look like it was a little. I was like, oh, that looks tasty. But you know what, Amanda Anisimova, I'm glad you showed that because she's someone that I predicted a year ago would win a major this year. Because she made the Wimbledon final last year. She made the U.S. Open final last year, losing to Sabalenka. She's been a little banged up this year as far as injuries go. So she's been a little bit in and out, but she's playing awesome now. She had a huge couple wins the last couple of days. So whatever she's drinking there appears to be working. So I would say, Amanda, keep drinking it. And she's another American that I think could make some noise at the Open. Look for Eva Jovic as well, who's another young up-and-comer from California. We're loaded. We're stacked on the ladies' side. And don't forget about Jessica Pegula trying to finally win her first major. She's, the family's worried about the new stadium up in Buffalo with her, her family owns the Bills. But she's doing pretty well. She's been close to winning a major. That would be a great story for Jessica Pegula because she's one of the hardest working, well-liked players in women's tennis. She's been knocking on the door for a while. Maybe this is her time to break through, and then she can go up and celebrate with the opening of the new stadium in Buffalo.
I've also realized I don't think I've ever seen Red Bull outside of a can. I think we're all learning what Red Bull outside of a can looks like. Didn't realize it looked exactly like beer, but hey, whatever works for you. One player who will not be represented at the U.S. Open this year is Nick Kyrgios. He has received a suspension for testing positive for cocaine. What does this mean for the rest of his career?
Well, it probably means it's over. I mean, it was pretty much over anyway. He's a guy that's been, one of the biggest underachievers I've ever seen in tennis. I love the guy. We were with him on the Laver Cup team for many years. He's a great person off the court, but he's got some demons and he's got some, he's had issues and he owns up to his issues. He took responsibilities. He put out a message on his Instagram. It's really, to me, the thing I think of first is sad because I watched this guy practice repeatedly. I mean, he's got one of the purest serves I've ever seen in the history of tennis, and I've seen a lot of serves. And he just wasn't committed to doing the work necessary, the physical work especially. You could say the mental work as well. You know, he's admitted he's had some mental health issues. So it's when I saw this, I wasn't surprised, but I was sad. But the fact is, he's been irrelevant when it comes to big time tennis in the last couple of years. And that's too bad, because this was a guy who had a run to the Wimbledon final, took a set off Djokovic there, had a great year that year, but he's never been able to back it up. He's never been able to have the discipline, the consistency to be a big time player. Because trust me when I tell you this, he had the talent to be that, but it never materialized. And this is just another sad event that's happened in his career, in my opinion.
All right, before we let you go, we got next week. You're launching a new podcast with Rich Big Daddy Salgado, the Mac Daddy Show. Tell me about it. What can everybody expect?
Well, it's sort of an interesting mix. It's sort of an oddball combination. Big Daddy brings his background, big NFL guy, big New York. I'm a New York guy too, but, in the tennis world. And we met doing some local TV shows, and we thought this would be something fun to do. And we've put about 20 interviews in the can with people like Michael Strahan, which will be our first episode on August 26th, just coming up in the next week. Bryan Cranston, Micah Ruzioni, Brandy Chastain, Ed Burns. So a lot of sports people, but some people from the entertainment world as well. And it's kind of you see a different side of people. We sit down, we do interviews at a restaurant. We did one at a boxing ring. We do one on feet. We go anywhere around New York City. So it's something new. It's something different, something I've always wanted to do. And I'm excited about what we've already done and what we're going to release in the next couple months.
Can't wait. The Mac Daddy Show. Check it out. It launches August 26th. Obviously, you can hear him on ESPN as always. Patrick McEnroe. Follow him on Twitter X at Patrick McEnroe. Patrick, always appreciate your time, your expertise, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us.
I appreciate you guys having me. Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Next time
Thanks,
we're all
Patrick.
in the same city, we'll drink some Red Bulls together. That's all I have to say about that. All right, coming up next, we'll get Josh Davis's thoughts on all things Eagles.
Losing Laramie Tunsil, top 3 left tackle in the NFL, it's a huge deal because now this offensive line goes from interesting to maybe bad. Now, Brandon Coleman, who's my X factor for them, he did start all of 2024, his rookie year, and they were one of the best offenses in the NFL that season. If you want to be this more, under center, deep drop back passing game, you're going to need your protection to be really good, as opposed to like we're in the gun and getting it out in the horizontal raid with Cliff Kingsbury. Who there tempts you the most, and is it Drake May, because your heart is aflutter still for Drake May?
It is Drake May. If you draft Drake May, you ask yourself, are we still on the front 9 with AJ Brown? Is he going to win the breakup with the Eagles? Is Romeo Doubs, did they overpay for him and overslot him, or is he really an impact player? It's going to hurt me when I don't draft Drake May this year. I don't think I'm going to do it very often. I may not even do it at all.
The thing with Derrick Henry, which I really admired with him with the Titans for sure. You see 22 on the field, he's getting the ball. Derrick Henry's coming. Derrick Henry was the focal point of that offense for years. But guess what? Still, nobody stopped him. With Derrick Henry, he's another year older, but he does not look another year closer to falling off. He does not look another year closer to slowing down. And he seems like he can go for as long as he wants to.
Mendoza was not the only player who left Duke that day to go to Miami. His best receiver, Cooper Barkate, went with him. He was the best receiver in the Ivy League at Harvard in 2024. He graduates from Harvard. He hops in the portal, goes to Duke, and has 1,100 receiving yards at Duke last year. Well, now he goes to Miami.
Harvard to Miami. How can you not love this sport right now? This is fantastic.
Sean Mannion said the big issue in the preseason opener was that, quote, we weren't staying on schedule. Said that he felt smooth calling plays from the sideline. The lines of communication were clear. He'll call the next game from the booth and get a feel from there, which to me just reminds us all that Sean Mannion's still figuring out exactly what he wants his approach to be as a play caller. To help us break that down, host of the Philly Special Show, All Things Eagles, Josh Davis. Josh, when you hear Mannion sort of feeling this out, what's your reaction?
I love it. I mean, I'm really high on Sean Mannion ever since the Eagles got him. named in their offensive coordinator. To me, it goes back even to last year, and anyone who's an Eagles fan can tell you this and remember it. Anyone who's not an Eagles fan can probably tell you this and remember. But Kevin Patullo was not the answer. And yet there was just the clamoring nonstop of like, hey, try something new, change something up. He was on the sidelines. It wasn't working. Maybe go to the booth, sometimes back out of it, get a 30,000-foot view, say this is what's taking place, and not really as anticipated as much excitement on the sidelines. But he wasn't willing to try that. So to me, I'm like, hey, I love it. You know what? If Sean Mannon's going to get in, he's going to test out everything, figure out what works. He talked about throughout his entire career, he's pretty much been on the sidelines. Last year was really the 1 year in Green Bay that he was up in the booth, and it does add a different dynamic. So, to me, he's been tagged as like the evil genius by a lot of the players. But, you got to try different formulas, figure out what works. And if it does, then he'll stay in the booth. And if not, then I still probably expect him to be on the sideline. But you might as well try it.
I think that is a measured take that, hey, sometimes these things just take time, especially for a quarterback in Jalen Hurts. It feels like he's had a different offensive coordinator every single year. But we also understand that Eagles fans maybe aren't the most patient, maybe aren't the most measured. Love you, Eagles fans. How much time are you giving Sean Mannion before you feel like it's the right time to make a fair evaluation of him as the offensive coordinator in Philly?
That's a great question. I've at least got to give him the first half of the season. And I know a lot of fans will be like, that's crazy. Like, there's no way. But coming into it, I agree with you. Like, you got to give some time. It's a completely new change of a system. It is a 180. We've seen bits and pieces. The Eagles don't really allow much filming. Thankfully, they're at joint practice with the Patriots this week, and they can't prohibit as much of that filming. So we've gotten to see more of it. But being at camp, I was there last week. It's totally different. I mean, under center usage, the plays there, Jalen Hurts throwing the ball over the middle of the field. There's been some interceptions. So, you got people going like, oh my gosh, what's happening here? But I'd say you got to try it. It's practice for a reason. And so those mistakes are actually a good thing. But I think, yeah, you got to give at least the midpoint of the season, because to install this, I think about 2 years ago, the Super Bowl winning season with Vic Fangio, that defense was terrible through 4 weeks. They were one of the bottom defenses in the league through 4 weeks, but you fast forward to the Super Bowl and one of the best defenses just measurably, like just in recent modern history. So sometimes it takes time to adjust and get used to the scheme. And I would say, let's give it to middle point of the season, maybe the trade deadline as far as a target, but got to give him some time.
I want to qualify this question a little bit because I don't want to make Eagles fans mad. Nick Sirianni has never had a losing season as a head coach, to be very clear. And last season, while some deem it to be a failure, they were 11-6, right? But this is a team that has gone to the Super Bowl when the coordinators have been great and has not gone to the Super Bowl when the coordinators haven't been great. So how much credit do we give Nick Sirianni for the success or failure at this point of who the Eagles are?
I'll be honest. I've been one of them way back whenever it was after the first Super Bowl appearance, and then Brian Johnson took over, and not a great season like you're talking about. Was clamoring to say like, hey, you know what? Maybe Nick Sirianni is not the guy, right? Like, what does he do? He's had to give up play calling when he's calling the plays or when he's too involved with the offense. Not really the answer. As far as X's and O's, I think the vast majority, if not everybody, would agree and say like he doesn't need to be there. He doesn't need to be involved with that. But I've come around a lot more over the last couple seasons of saying he does know how to kind of stay in tune, lockstep with the heartbeat of this team. And there's a reason why the players rally around him. If he ever lost the locker room and you started hearing things about players leaked to the media or about Sirianni not having it, or maybe he needs to be out of there, then I think that it'd be a foregone conclusion. Like, there would be no chance for him. But I think that he does have a unique ability to unite people. And sometimes it's really corny messages. There's had a lot of those that have come out in press conference. I know people think about his intro press conference a long time ago, but he still has a way to unite people. And that connection has felt really bought in from all the guys. And I think if you want to point to anything, you really take a look at Jalen Hurts and what he's said about Nick Sirianni. Like, look at the growth of their relationship over the last 3 years or so. If it was still how it was 3 years ago, we'd have a big issue, but he's come around on it. So I think it just speaks to Nick Sirianni's ability to connect with people.
You bring up Jalen Hurts. Yesterday in joint practice with the Patriots, he threw 3 picks and 0 touchdowns. Look, it's practice. It's a new offense. I understand that. But right now, that's all we have to go off of. what is the level of concern and level of expectation for Jalen Hurts going into this year?
I am zero concern for Jalen Hurts. You're right. There were 3 interceptions. If you go back and look at the footage that kind of came out throughout X, Dontavian Wicks dropped one of those. It was a good pass over the middle. He dropped it, intercepted. The other one was a miscommunication. Britton Covey ran the wrong route, and Jalen threw it. Now, again, end of the day, if that's in a game, it still goes on Jalen Hurts' stat sheet. So, you take it with a caveat there. But still, then Jalen Hurts airmailed one, definitely on him for an interception. But to me, again, I go back to look, this is practice, as you mentioned there. And Aaron Rodgers had made a statement of this. Tom Brady has said this recently on a podcast, but that's when you want to be making these mistakes. So to me, it's almost like a positive. That may be a weird thing to say, but it feels like a positive to me because in the past, we've seen training camps where Jalen Hurts will go through the entire training camp and maybe not have a single interception or like one interception because he's historically very conservative with the football. And especially when you get into high leverage situations. But to me, it's like, you know what? Hey, this is him saying yeah, let's test it. Let's try this out. Can I thread the needle here? Is it worth trying to go over the middle of the football field? Is it worth trying to test this safety in this situation? Now, he's thrown a lot more interceptions so far through this training camp than others, but I think it does kind of provide a testament to Sean Mannion's offense and going, all right, we're learning this thing, but the only way we're going to figure out how much of this works and how much I can actually really take chances in games here is in practice settings. So for me, I'm not concerned about it. There's been reports all across the building in Philadelphia, executives who even were not fans of Jalen Hurts or in the sense of him being the guy of coming around. Jay Glazer had a report a couple days ago, I believe, talking about guys that said they're raving about his work ethic and willingness to change and adapt to an offensive setting that many thought he would not be willing to do. And he's proven again that he does whatever it takes to win.
So I'm sitting there this morning watching Sao Paulo on ESPN, and they play a portion of an interview with A.J. Brown. And he asks A.J., have you kept in touch with your teammates? You getting that chance? And he's like, oh, yeah, I love everybody. We've been hanging out. And Sal says, even Jalen? And quickly, A.J. says, no, not him. But maybe we'll catch up this week. How bad was it in Philly between Jalen Brown and A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown? And can you feel a palpable difference around the team this year?
100%. Yeah. But I mean, it speaks volumes to what he said there. And, it was hilarious. I thought the same thing because it was like, oh, we might cross paths this week. It's like, bro, you are at a joint practice. It's very easy to go up and say hey, man, what's up? How's it going? Or even just a quick cordial, hey, it's good to see you. And then just move on. But yes, it was not good by any means. And talking to several people in the building, again, I mentioned being at training camp last week, other individuals throughout the offseason, obviously just talk about it, but the air is lighter in Philadelphia. The dark cloud over Philadelphia has moved on to Foxborough. Now it's sunny and rainbows there now as well, it seems like. But for Philadelphia, it was not going to work. And so you just kind of go back and look at it. There were kind of just some rumors of it, or you saw semblances, but even not to the full extent, I think, until really moving on and then going okay, so people talk about, well, was there a regression for AJ? Is he kind of towards the tail end of his prime, so to speak, or whatever the case may be? I know it's just joint practices and other footage that we have so far to go off of, but just judging from yesterday's joint practice, AJ is still the beast that he is and that he can be. So it's not really anything for a lack of effort, or it's not anything for his lack of talent, I should say. It was everything for a lack of effort, and he just quit on the team last year. So the kind of not really getting along with Jalen, it wasn't just Jalen, but others in the building, everyone, they're going to miss, and I've said this before, they're going to miss as far as just the talent perspective, AJ Brown. You can't replace him individually. He's insane. And when he wants to play well, he can dominate a game. But I think that by and large, this is going to be a win for both sides because the Eagles needed to move on. They needed the chemistry and morale to be much better like it is now. And the Patriots needed a wide receiver one. So they both got it. But yeah, it was not good in hindsight.
I used to do local sports talk radio in Nashville, and I was on air when the Titans traded AJ Brown on draft night. And it was shocking, it was stunning, but everybody believed, okay, you trade away AJ Brown, you get younger, you get cheaper in Treylon Burks, it'll be great. And then we saw how that turned out. I know that Philly is a much better team and a much more well-run organization than the Tennessee Titans are, but that's kind of what the Eagles did in drafting Mekhi Lemon, right? You move on from AJ Brown, you bring in Mekhi Lemon, he can step in that role, at least in theory. What gives you confidence that Mekhi Lemon can do that successfully?
I mean, I think that really comes down to the scheme and the system that Sean Mannion's implementing. I don't know that, because again, AJ Brown is insane. Like he's a top 3 receiver. So I hope so. I hope that Mekhi Lemon at some point in his career could be a top 3 receiver. But if I was going to predict it right now, I don't think that he would end up getting to the level of an AJ Brown. And again, it's not to say that he won't be successful, but to me, I think he could be really good. His yards after catch coming from USC, but in this system, in this scheme, the hope is, and the plan for it, for really just the West Coast style, but kind of the Sean Mannion adapting various of Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, is to get these players in space to make plays, make life easier on them. Because in the past, and as people that are very familiar with, I'm sure, but the Eagles football was predicated on, hey, we got a bunch of playmakers, especially in the passing game. We're just going to take advantage of when you give us a one-on-one. Like if it's AJ Brown, we're going to throw it to him. If it's Devontae Smith, we're going to throw it to him. If it's Dallas Goedert, we're going to throw it to him. The scheme was not as much, and hence last year for the million hitch routes that they ran. But it's like when they get one-on-one, they're going to take advantage of it. This scheme is supposed to, and we've seen some of it throughout training camp as well as joint practice. It's getting guys in space, getting guys open where it's a little making life a little bit easier, and it's kind of marrying those running and passing game concepts. So I'm hopeful with Mekhi Lemon being that quicker, shiftier yards after catch guy that he can be successful. Rookie season, I mean, I said it on a live stream recently too. I think 600 yards, maybe 650 yards, that to me would be a successful campaign for his rookie season, because people are sleeping on Dontavian Wicks as well, and don't forget about Darius Cooper. So first year, kind of by committee, if you will, to replace AJ.
All right, before we get you out of here, we ask everybody this. Coming into the season, understanding it's August, power rank the division for me. How do you have the division playing out when it's all said and done?
Oh, good question. Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, Commanders.
Biggest. So are you the most scared of the Cowboys this year?
Yes. Yeah. Their offense is really good, and defense was the only question, but they got Christian Parker. I hated that he went to the Cowboys, like you never want to see any Eagle go there. Shout out to Nakobe Dean for not being willing to go to Dallas, wanted to go to Vegas instead. But, I think they do have a really good guy in Christian Parker as the defensive coordinator. Caleb Downs, the draft picks that they made, some other acquisitions as well. So if the defense plays, I'm not trusting in Dallas, but I do think that they will give us the best shot.
You guys can check out the Philly special. Follow on Twitter, X at the PHI special. You know how to do it. We appreciate your time so much. Thanks for hanging out with us, Josh. Enjoy the season. You got to come back and hang out with us as the season goes on.
There we go. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Great stuff from him.
Thanks, Josh.
It's going to be a great year for Philly. Coming up, we'll evaluate some of the preseason fantasy information you need on running backs. Coming up next.
We're going to talk about Alan Graves, who looks like a hit of a draft prospect for the Toronto Raptors. Looks sensational, man.
I thought the shot was there. You talked about the percentage, but also most of the shots were off of the catch, above the break. Just a good sign in terms of his positioning.
And I think for the Toronto Raptors, a team that already has so much size, adding Alan Graves to this, it almost feels like some of those championship Raptors teams.
Can't predict the future, and I know that it's a long process, and it's not just my decision, but at the same time, I'm going to give the doctors and the coaches every single opportunity they can to let me be out there week 1, and I don't want to miss that game, because that's the team that won the division while we were gone, and you want to be out there and ready to go with your teammates. And so hopefully the doctors and the coaches give me the green light, and I'm able to go out there with my guys and compete against one of the best teams in the league.
They have to have better details on the back end, because that was their greatest qualm last year, especially on third down. They were just a mess. Bad tackling, bad angles, slow to react. And this is a great stat from Next Gen Stats. First opportunity depth of tackle. So the first time they're able to tackle somebody, what's the depth of tackle? Theirs was the second highest in the league last year, 4.9. The Cowboys were the only ones higher. So they were late to react. So there was a perfect stat to match the eye test there. But that just has to get better. More than anything, that's what I'm focusing on with this defense.
I know people talk trash about the PFL and say, oh, because you're in the PFL, you're nothing. The level of fighters in the PFL are just as high as the people in the UFC. And the reason you don't understand that, the reason you don't think so, is because you're a casual. You're not a true MMA fan. You don't understand the game as much as you hope or you think you do. if I ever gave a damn about what somebody thought up until this moment, I would not be the champion.
New Orleans Saints running back Alvin Kamara is expected to be sidelined for at least the next month due to sprained MCL. That per Adam Schefter. He's not the only running back dealing with injuries so far during this stretch of training camp and preseason. A lot of guys banged up that could potentially impact their stock in your fantasy draft. We know that's coming up. So in the spirit of Yahoo's 29 Days of Fantasy, we're going to help you. We're going to help you through. We're going to talk you through all of it. Considering the injury to Alvin, where do you think is the appropriate time to draft Kamara?
Never. I probably wouldn't draft him at all. If you were considering drafting Alvin Kamara, I would say like very back end of the draft, just kind of as a flyer. It's not 2018 or 2019 anymore. And unfortunately, Alvin Kamara is just not that running back anymore. He's not going to give you that same level of fantasy production. And this is Travis Etienne's position. He is going to be RB1 in New Orleans. And Alvin Kamara is, I think, just going to be out there as kind of more as a gadget back, maybe more as a decoy. So I would probably stay away from Alvin Kamara altogether before the injury news, but especially since the injury news came out.
Yeah, I think the Travis Etienne information is important here. 4-year, $52 million contract. Again, I want to repeat that. 4-year, $52 million contract in free agency. You don't give, let me say it one more time, 4 years and $52 million when you're going to be sharing it, you're going to be thinking about it, you're going to be using Kamara a bunch. Like, I was a little surprised after that contract that they didn't already try and figure out what they were going to look like for the future. Alvin Kamara has meant so much to the Saints. I believe so much in what he's done for this franchise. But when you start talking about the amount of money they've given to another running back, it just tells you that Kamara now is a third down guy. He's an alternate guy. He's a guy that's going to get some touches. But from the 20 on in, I'm going to trust that they're going to give the ball to Etienne a heck of a lot more in that situation. So I'm really out on Kamara. Late round flyer, maybe if you want, but then you add the injury to it. I particularly don't feel good. Next up, how about this one? Cardinals running back Jeremiah Love suffered a high ankle sprain in his first preseason game against the Raiders. Where do you land with Love on your draft board?
He is still high on my draft board, especially if the 14 touches that he got in a preseason game and a half, if that's indicative of his usage this year, then absolutely he's going to be high up there because my goodness. I mean, Jeremiah Love's on track to touch the ball like 40 times a game. I know obviously that's not going to be the case, but still, I do think they're going to use Jeremiah Love a lot. I wouldn't take him in the first round. I'm always very weary of rookies because you just don't know how they're going to pan out. You don't know how they're going to be used in a respective offense. You don't know how they're going to adjust to the NFL game. So he wouldn't be a first round pick for me, but he would still be maybe in that second, third, fourth round conversation if he's available in your drafts at that point.
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously as a Raiders fan, I watched every snap of that game, and Jeremiah Love had some really nice runs. He also got stuffed several times by a Raiders run defense that so far, according to multiple reports from now multiple training camp practices, looks terrible. I don't know how much of what we saw in that week 1 action against the Raiders was about Jeremiah Love, who I do think is spectacular, but what infrastructure is around him? The Cardinals are going to suck. Isn't this very similar to the Ashton Genty conversation we had last year? And I feel like last year, a lot of us, myself included, put our hands on the stove and learned that hot stove in hand isn't a good result. When you don't have the right infrastructure around a young running back, I don't trust that young running back to be able to go off. I don't really trust the Cardinals' offensive line as a whole. I don't trust their offense as a whole. I don't trust their quarterback situation. And we don't know. But what we do know right now, after reports from the joint practices between the Texans and the Raiders, one of the main things that has been written about by everybody involved in those joint practices is that the Texans have run all over the Raiders in embarrassing fashion. So maybe, just maybe, Jeremiah Love with those touches wasn't just about Jeremiah Love. It was about taking on a run defense that so far hasn't found its footing at all. So now you want me to trust a running back coming off a high ankle sprain behind an offensive line that I think could end up being pretty meh on a Cardinals team that I think is going to suck this year. I don't like any of that. I love Jeremiah Love if we're talking about a dynasty league. We're talking about the next several years. I don't love Jeremiah this year for most of us playing fantasy football. I might be the outlier on that one. Breece Hall suffered a groin injury in practice, expected to be sidelined for 2 to 3 weeks. What does that do for you with Breece Hall on your draft board?
Injury doesn't scare me at all. 2 to 3 weeks, it's a groin thing. I wouldn't be surprised if this is just, hey, we need to put you in bubble wrap, so we're not going to put you out there. You're a veteran. We trust you. You know, this offense, we're not worried about you getting a ton of, work and practice done. So this is just kind of the Jets' way of being like, yeah, we're good on Breece Hall. We're not going to risk anything more. So the injury doesn't concern me, but I wouldn't really invest a ton of fantasy draft stock in Breece Hall. He had 4 touchdowns last year. Like, sure, he was top 5 in running backs in rushing yards. I get that. I know, but I mean, that touchdowns are going to and scoring is going to be where you get a majority of your value. And he just didn't get a lot of that last season. So the injury doesn't concern me. It's more so the usage and the touchdown and the scoring last season that would lead me to believe that Breece Hall is more of the back of the draft kind of pick.
Well, and it is interesting because certainly everybody says you don't worry about September, but I've had fantasy football experts tell me that you do worry about September. How your team performs that you draft in September actually does have tangible outcome to how your whole season goes. There's some numbers on it. So to me, I'm a little torn on this, not because I don't love Breece. I do love Breece, but because the Jets open with the Titans, fine. But then they have the Packers, the Lions, the Bears, the Browns, whose defense is always good, the Patriots. They've got a juggernaut ahead of them. Even if you want to look at the end of the season, towards the end of the season, they're going to have the Patriots again, the Vikings, and the Bills. So I don't love a lot of the schedule ahead of Breece Hall. So I'm concerned not because of the injury. I'm just concerned because I don't love the Jets. So it makes me nervous to be taking Breece Hall. It makes me nervous to be trusting a New York Jet. All of it makes me nervous. How about this one? Christian McCaffrey has missed a bunch of time due to muscle tightness early on in training camp. Where does McCaffrey land on your draft board?
And McCaffrey is such a difficult one because if you had Christian McCaffrey last year, I mean, it was probably good for what, 20, 25 points a game. I mean, McCaffrey is just as much a receiver as he is a running back, and he can be a red zone threat. And I get that. I know that. And I know the potential of Christian McCaffrey. I'm just so scared of the injuries. I'm scared of the injuries on this entire 49ers team. But if you want to draft Christian McCaffrey, it is more than likely going to have to come in the first round, probably latest second round. I can't have that much risk attached to my first round pick. So I'm out.
Oh, I'm the guy you want to kick out of your league
out.
when you're doing the draft. I am the guy I am walking up to the board to slap McCaffrey's name on there. I'm going, risk it for the biscuit, risk it for the biscuit. I'm singing it over and over. You're right. Look, if McCaffrey's hurt, you're up creek. Your season's done. Just give everybody your fee and start figuring out what your punishment's going to be. But if he's not hurt, are you feeling good about it? The only thing I tell you is that learn from previous years. Take one of the backups. Take Black in the late and take a flyer late. Get yourself the backup running back for the 49ers just in case in the 6th round when nobody else is paying attention to it. Give yourself that opportunity. Like at some point, man, the ceiling is worth the floor. The risk is worth the reward. I am too much of a sucker for what Christian McCaffrey can do. I know. You are being measured and smart. I am being obnoxious every single portion of the way through. And when people are trying to talk me out of it, I'm slapping that name out there while I do a dance. We'll continue all of the fantasy football talk. Don't forget 29 days of fantasy football hitting at you right now across Yahoo Sports. We will get you ready for your leagues, our leagues, everybody's leagues, and all the trash talk talking in between. Coming up next, the great Rob Riggle going to join the show. We'll get his thoughts on the Chiefs coming up.
And that's really what we get into with the first quarterback I want to talk about, Sam Levitt, transferring from Arizona State over to LSU. You're going to plug Sam Levitt into that system with his ability to create outside of structure, his ability to get yards. On the ground, I think you're going to see him really outperform where he's being drafted right now. In a Power 4 only format, I have him as QB5 right now.
we're in a very, very bad time for the perception of college football. There's a fatigue point that people keep debating. Is it because of NIL? Is it because of portal? Is it because of what's going on in Congress? And I think the average consumer, and there's still more average consumers that listen and watch this show than there are industry insiders. There is a fatigue point with perpetual revision of the postseason format. People aren't as stupid as the individuals in this industry seem to think that they are.
Who is your breakout candidate for this year?
Kind of think Isaiah Likely with the New York Giants is a really good candidate this year. Kind of wide receiver room that could rotate a little bit and be useful players, but they don't, to me, have one dynamic. Even Fields, who I like, I don't know that he's gonna be like a dynamic guy that right off the bus, round 3 rookie, leads the team in targets. I think that could actually be Isaiah Likely. Tight ends on their second contracts have been good bets to make. I think Likely is a good bet to make this year.
How is your recovery going?
It's going good. It's a long process. I think that's what I've learned throughout this entire thing. And so all I can do is be as great as I can be every single day. It's tough. You have to just maximize that day and then slowly get better and better as the year goes on. And so just having the guys back and getting to be back on the football field will kind of get me going in order to get ready for the season.
Trent McDuffie says Patrick Mahomes was back working out the next day after suffering torn ligaments in his knee last December. That via Bussin' with the Boys. It just speaks to Patrick Mahomes. We now welcome in diehard Chiefs fan, one of my favorite actors in the entire world, Rob Riggle, joining us. Let's start there. All right. How confident are you, Rob, in Mahomes coming back week 1 and leading the Chiefs to glory?
I mean, as confident as anybody could possibly be. Yeah, I'm all Chiefs all the time, every day, 24/7, 365. I believe in Patrick. I believe in his toughness. I believe in his leadership. I'm not saying he's a deity. I'm not saying he's at that level, but he's up there. He's doing pretty darn good. He's doing his recovery just right. He's coming along beautifully. It's all a timing thing. Like, everybody's working in beautiful synchronicity. The draft was incredible. I anticipate nothing but more glory for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, there are some pundits, some analysts who do not agree with that. And I feel like you've played plenty of characters that would bully those nerds. You would say, not up in here, not you, fat Jesus. So what do you have to say to those people who are not expecting a Chiefs comeback, but rather a Chiefs regression?
Oh, gosh. Well, look, haters are going to hate. Nothing you can do about that. When you're on top, people trying to knock you off. To quote, part of the Chiefs kingdom, people like to throw rocks at things that shine. Little Taylor quote there for you. Anyway, I don't care about the haters. I really don't. Listen, I've been with the Chiefs since I was born. I think I went to my first Chiefs game in 1975. We've been out in the desert for a long, long time. And now it's our time. And I'm enjoying every minute of it. And I hope it lasts for as long as possible. And for those who aren't experiencing it, sorry, maybe your time will come later. But right now it's the Chiefs' time. And in a nice way, I guess the best way I can say is suck it. Suck it until it's your time. Now it's our time.
You know what? If I were a Chiefs fan and not a Raiders fan, I'd be saying suck it too. Unfortunately, I'm a Raiders fan. I don't get to say that. Most of the time, I just get to watch my team suck. Nicolas Cage played John Madden, speaking of my beloved Raiders, in a movie. So it has me thinking, like, Rob Riggle gets the call to play Andy Reid. I realize you'd have to have some makeup put on, but we taking that call? Like, would we be in on the Andy Reid biopic film?
Yes, in a heartbeat. I just hope I could do it justice, but it would take everything I got. I did have a pretty good mustache going just recently. That kind of, it was in the vibe of Andy's mustache. So I know I've got the capability of the facial hair. The rest would take a lot of prep, though. A lot of prep to get there.
Maybe the Hawaiian shirts need to boost up in your closet. You can borrow one from Fifth.
Maybe not as much prep as I thought. Maybe it is just Hawaiian shirts and the mustache.
I'm sure you would also say yes to playing Travis Kelce in a movie as well.
Yes,
But this
again with the
could be
mustache.
yeah, again with the mustache. Forgot about that.
Yeah.
He's been rocking the mustache. I'm a fan. But this very well could be his swan song. What type of season are you expecting from Travis Kelce if this is in fact the last one?
Well, I think he's obviously he's a Hall of Famer as we speak. He's one of the greatest tight ends to ever play the game. He's got a competitive nature in him that still burns very hot. And so, yeah, I think anytime he steps on the field, he's a professional. He's going to bring everything he's got. He's going to do everything he can to help his team win. He's a leader. He brings so much experience to the locker room and to the position, and he knows his quarterback better than anybody. So, yeah, I mean, I anticipate him having a great year. I hope he stays healthy. And I don't know if it's his last year or not, but if it is, it's still gonna be a banner year no matter what. So if it is his last year, he's gonna have great numbers and he's gonna play hard, hard, hard. That's the nature of who he is. Boom.
Speaking of greatness, you are teaming up with BetMGM and Marriott Bonvoy to host the ultimate fantasy football draft for one lucky league in Vegas at the end of the month. I am all in on every ounce of this. Give everybody the scoop with the Vegas fantasy draft. Yeah, that is a quality mustache. What's the Vegas fantasy draft sweepstakes entail?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's going to be a very good time. We're doing it at the end of August there out in Vegas. BetMGM. It's time to pick your fantasy football league, guys, and I'm gonna be out there helping you do it. There's going to be obviously some high stakes action going on. It's Vegas. What are we talking about here? Forget about it. Hey, it'll be a blast. I myself play in multiple fantasy football leagues. I have since I was in college, and that's back in the old days when we did everything by paper. So it's going to be fun. I'm in a fantasy league right now called the Hollywood Phonies. It's full of celebrities that I'll leave their name out of it, but they're a bunch of idiots, and I still can't win in that league. So I must be the biggest idiot of all. But there's other ones though that I always feel like I have 2 or 3 teams going, and I always feel like my teams after the draft. I always feel great about my teams. I'm always like, I think this is the year. I think I'm going to win this sucker. And I'm always middle of the pack. I'm always down at the bottom. I don't know how it happens. And it's just the most infuriating thing because I'll score 150 points in a week and I would have beat 8 out of the 10 guys in my league. But the one guy that I played scored, 160 or had the career day. And so I love it and it's infuriating at the same time. But fantasy football is a blast. BetMGM, we're going to be out at the Aria putting things together, big party, big social event, and it'll be a lot of fun. So if you're interested in that, you can look it up on BetMGM sweepstakes. Come on out for the fantasy football good times in Vegas. I believe it's August 29th, 28th, 29th. I should know that. I'm going to be out there for the whole weekend. I'm going to be out there for the whole weekend. Let me just say that.
Yeah.
So both. The optimism of August is like a drug. Everyone's team is winning the Super Bowl and everyone is winning their fantasy football leagues. It's the best time of year. But speaking of Vegas, you starred in probably the greatest movie about Vegas of all time. And it's The Hangover. You had some legendary lines from that movie. But what is your favorite, maybe behind the scenes story from filming The Hangover?
Oh, I mean, I guess, Todd Phillips, who was the director, I knew him from back in New York when we were doing improv together. And so he was very gracious with the improv. He let us play. And that freed us, everybody, all the actors up to say things and do things that weren't on the page. And I think he trusted us to do that. So, not up in here. That was just me following Cleo's lead when she said not up in here. I just wanted to, back her up on that. So I screamed not up in here, in the face. I was just celebrating this kid's wonderful shot, shooting Zach in the face. So and then all that, don't be afraid to ride the lightning. You're holding 50,000. None of that's in the page. It was just there was this silence that I thought it would be fun to fill with just some really wrong-minded coaching, I guess. But yeah, all that stuff was just a blast because everybody was down to improvise, and including the director and all the other actors. So that's what made it fun for sure.
Rob, full transparency here. When I worked at ESPN reading college football highlights, I used "in the face," "not up in here," and "not you, fat Jesus" so much in college football highlights that the bosses actually came to me and said, "You got to find another Rob Riggle quote." So the next week I came in and went, "Pow!" And I went, "Pow!" And they were like, "Son of a biscuit. Shouldn't have done it." All right, so let's go to Step Brothers. I know, I found everything. So I need other quotes, other moments here. We'll go to Step Brothers next. All right, one memory you have from Step Brothers filming that stands out to you.
Working with Will Ferrell and Adam McKay and everybody involved in that film. But it was another one of those things where Adam and Will, they come from improv backgrounds. So, saying things that aren't on the page is welcome. That's not always welcome. There's some sets and some directors and actors who don't like to stray too far from the script. So, but these guys don't mind. They don't mind doing, playing and having fun and seeing what works. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that's how you find out. You got to try it. And so that was fun. If you ever want to have some fun, go to the deleted scenes. I don't know, they don't have DVDs anymore, but you can find it online. There's some deleted scenes, and the original version of that pal scene is really fun. Very, very cool. We had to change the scene because they wanted Will Ferrell's character to be more aggressive, and in the deleted scene he was kind of more passive. So they wanted him snapping necks and cashing checks. So we reshot the scene, and that's where the pal came from. But the one before it was also really, really funny.
Off the top of your head, do you by chance remember any of the scenes that were improvised?
I mean, I feel like a lot of the scenes, there's writing to it, but then you always try a different line or a different word, or so there's there's a lot of versions. I know when we're actually at the Catalina wine mixer, I tell Will that Will's character Brendan, he's doing a great job and looks like he pulled it off, but his face is driving me nuts, and if he doesn't change it, I'm going to change it for him. And think about if your boss came to you and said this stuff, like Will was so great because he's playing it as honestly, you have to play it real, so he's like, well, all I can do is take that in and try to work on it. I'm giving him this absurd thing to deal with, and he's dealing with it in a masterful way. And that's all improvised. That whole thing is just improvised, and it made the movie, and it always makes me smile when I see it. So
so awesome.
Yeah.
What about the other guys? Any memories stand out to you in that one? And another film you got to work on with Will Ferrell?
Yeah, I mean, that was another one. It was Adam McKay, Will Ferrell. So same guys, and they really, again, they embraced a lot of the improv. You see so much of it throughout that movie. And yeah, working with Damon Wayans Jr., that was a blast. He and I had so much fun together. Again, most of the Adam McKay, Will Ferrell movies, you go back and look at them, you could probably make an entire movie just on the stuff they didn't choose, just on the stuff they left on the cutting room floor. You could probably make a whole new version, and it would be just as entertaining. It'd be just as funny, in my opinion, because there were so many different fun takes. For sure.
I mean, Mark Wahlberg's out here all the time telling everybody about his 4 a.m. club working out. Were you guys hitting the gym with Mark early in the morning?
Damon Wayans Jr. and Mark, they worked out. They were machines. Will and I, we had more pasta and beer. I think that was more our workout policy.
Smart.
And you can see it.
Yeah.
For me, you can see it on the camera. I'm like, oh boy, I was definitely hitting the. It was cold. It was like we were filming in the winter. I Wasn't getting outside, but there was a nice pub right next to the hotel that served this great pasta dish and Guinness. So I didn't help myself.
That's the right place to be. I would definitely
Yeah,
be joining you guys. Before we let you go, you're here with
you
us
get
with
it.
BetMGM Ultimate Fantasy Draft Sweepstakes. You will provide commentary and reactions as draft selections are made, which will be top tier. I know it. It's a real promise that comes with this promotion. Are you prepared to just nonstop roast an entire fantasy league after each
Yeah.
pick? Are we giving any sort of kudos, or is it just roast after roast after roast?
No, no, no. It's not just it's not going to be hardcore roasting. It's going to be a celebration. We're going to have fun. If somebody gets it right, you get it right. I'm going to celebrate that. And when I say get it right, I mean pick any Chiefs player. I'm going to celebrate that with you. And don't get me wrong. I know you're a Raiders fan. I think Mendoza. I think he's something special, and it scares me actually that you have him now. I don't like that. I don't like it at all. But I mean, listen. I'm doing the research, guys. I'm doing the work. I'm trying to get prepped for it. It's really just I want it to be fun. I want it to be fun. I want it to be happy and celebratory. And of course, when you do screw up, that's fun. That can be a lot of fun. When you make that terrible, when you pick the punter in the fifth or the sixth round, excuse me, or the kicker in the fifth or the sixth round. Yeah, we're going to talk about it. We're gonna have to talk about it. So, but it's going to be a good time.
Do you think
promise.
who do you think would give the best Fernando Mendoza impression?
Oh gosh, oh that's tough. I mean, there's so many great. I would. I don't know. Will Arnett, perhaps, but his voice is too deep. I don't know. I need time to think about that one.
Rob, I'm ever the company man, but I'm just giving you a cheat code. If you download the Yahoo Fantasy app, you go out and you pay for the Yahoo Fantasy Ultra. It's not bad at all. It will give you all the cheat codes you need. Like Yahoo will walk you through your app better than anybody else. I'm just letting you know. I am a company man, Rob, but I will let you know that Yahoo's Fantasy app kicks everybody else's butt. You guys can hang out with him in Vegas. BetMGM Ultimate Fantasy Draft Sweepstakes. I love you so much that I hate the Chiefs a little less every time I think about the fact that you're a fan, Rob. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Best of luck. Have a blast in Vegas next weekend. We appreciate you. You got to come back on when the Raiders play the Chiefs, and we'll trash talk each other.
Okay, that's fair, and I appreciate it, guys. It's good to see you. Thank you so much.
Great stuff.
Thanks,
Follow
Rob.
him on Twitter. Actually, you know it. At Rob Riggle. One of the best in the business. All right, coming up next, Lincoln Riley, not one of the best in the business. Maybe. Could be on the hot seat this year. We'll tell you about it.
Losing Laramie Tunsil, top 3 left tackle in the NFL, it's a huge deal because now this offensive line goes from interesting to maybe bad. Now, Brandon Coleman, who's my X factor for them, he did start all of 2024, his rookie year, and they were one of the best offenses in the NFL that season. If you want to be this more, under center, deep drop back passing game, you're going to need your protection to be really good, as opposed to like we're in the gun and getting it out in the horizontal raid with Cliff Kingsbury. Who there tempts you the most, and is it Drake May, because your heart is a flutter still for Drake May?
It is Drake May. If you draft Drake May, you ask yourself, are we still on the front 9 with AJ Brown? Is he going to win the breakup with the Eagles? Is Romeo Doubs, did they overpay for him and overslot him, or is he really an impact player? It's going to hurt me when I don't draft Drake May this year. I don't think I'm going to do it very often. I may not even do it at all.
The thing with Derrick Henry, which I really admired with him with the Titans for sure. You see 22 on the field, you know he's getting the ball. You know Derrick Henry's coming. Derrick Henry was the focal point of that offense for years. But guess what? Still, nobody stopped him. With Derrick Henry, yeah, he's another year older, but he does not look another year closer to falling off. He does not look another year closer to slowing down. And he seems like he can go for as long as he wants to.
Deion Mendoza was not the only player who left Duke that day to go to Miami. His best receiver, Cooper Barkate, went with him. He was the best receiver in the Ivy League at Harvard in 2024. He graduates from Harvard. He hops in the portal, goes to Duke, and has 1,100 receiving yards at Duke last year. Well, now he goes to Miami.
Harvard to Miami. How can you not
Yeah.
love this sport right now? This is fantastic.
Check out Yahoo Sports coverage of the Dutch Grand Prix this weekend. You can watch F1 practice and qualifying coverage for free on yahoosports.com and the Yahoo Sports app. Free practice 1 begins tomorrow at 6:30 a.m. with sprint qualifying taking place at 10:30 a.m. Race qualifying will take place on Saturday, August 22nd at 10 a.m. Eastern. The Dutch Grand Prix itself will stream on Apple TV at 9 a.m. on Sunday, August 23rd. For more, go to yahoosports.com/racing. That's how you can have a little bit of fun there. Believe it or not, Caroline, we're just 9 days away from USC football's opening game. Their Big Ten schedule this season is a gauntlet. Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, Washington, Penn State, all on the schedule. Is Lincoln Riley the coach who's seen as hottest going into this season?
It should be. I think it absolutely should be. I think you can bring up Dabo in that conversation as well, but I also think Dabo is so ingrained in the Clemson community and won actual national championships that kind of cools his seat down a little bit. But what has Lincoln Riley done? I mean, he was one of the big fish of that 2022 hiring cycle. And remember, that was kind of a crazy one. It was when Brian Kelly went to LSU. It was when Florida had an opening as well. And everyone in LA said it was a home run hire. It was a slam dunk hire. It was a can't miss hire. When Lincoln Riley had, a couple of quarterbacks win Heisman's at Oklahoma, he had a couple of trips to the college football playoff. Everybody said that this was an absolute 100% A-plus hire. And what has he done since? Since his 10-year, $10 million contract, when USC paid out his OU deal, when they bought him that fat house in the hills, he has delivered one double-digit win season. No, he had a Heisman season when Caleb Williams won the Heisman, but he's been to the college football playoff 0 times, even in an expanded playoff. He has been to 0 conference championships, and he has a 35-18 overall record. You don't get that kind of contract, and you don't get that kind of buzz when you deliver one double-digit win season and a 35-18 overall record. Just for reference, I mentioned Brian Kelly. He was hired in that same cycle. That was, the crazy 2022 cycle. Since then, or whenever Brian Kelly's career at LSU, he had 2 double-digit win seasons, a Heisman, 0 college football playoff appearances, 0 conference championships, and a 34-14 overall record. Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley and their tenures at their respective stops have not been that different. Yet we look at Brian Kelly like a total and complete buffoon, but we look at Lincoln Riley like he's going to be the savior in LA. I don't understand why we view those two so differently. Surely Brian Kelly is significantly more insufferable and embarrassing than Lincoln Riley is, but what they've actually accomplished, or what Brian Kelly accomplished versus what Lincoln Riley is in the process of accomplishing at USC, is not that far off. So with how much they've invested into Lincoln Riley, how much they've invested into that program, and how much more difficult their path is to the CFP now that they're in the Big Ten versus the Pac-12, it's wildly different. You got to play defense when you're in the Big Ten. And USC's defense ranked 11th in the conference last year. I just don't think it's a fit that matches the Big Ten. I don't think that Lincoln Riley is the right fit at USC, and I don't think he's done enough to have coached himself off the hot seat. He's under the microscope this year, and he should be.
Lincoln Riley has failed. To me, every single expectation that came with USC has been failed so far. In his 4 years as a head coach, yes, he had 11-3 the first year looking at it, but postseason ranking at that after the season finished was 12th. That's the highest he's accomplished. Then followed by 2 unranked seasons and a 20th ranked team. You are not paying, according to public records right now, north of $11.5 million per year for those sorts of rankings, especially when you're USC. Understand what USC used to be. And what they hired Lincoln Riley to do was bring them back to what they used to be. They should be dominating West Coast recruiting because they've done that in the past. They should be dominating West Coast player availability because they've done that in the past. USC should be able to put together a juggernaut of a team that year in and year out is a top contender for a national champion. And instead, you've got a loss in the Cotton Bowl, a loss in the Alamo Bowl, and big old wins for the Holiday Bowl and the Las Vegas Bowl. That's a joke. That is not what you are paying $11.5 million for. If you look at the success that Lincoln Riley had at Oklahoma and compare that directly to whatever success he's had at USC, it's a letdown. When you're paying as much money as they're paying for a letdown with a coach that has the brand and reputation that Lincoln has and is supposed to have walking into the room, he is supposed to be the type of coach that brings an offensive mindset that scores you so many points you can win no matter what your defense looks like. But frankly, they couldn't outrun how much their defense sucks. He's supposed to be the type of coach that brings you a Heisman contending quarterback every single year. He's supposed to be the type of coach that's a difference maker in tight games because he does all of the things that right now we give the benefit of the doubt and reputation to Lane Kiffin for doing. Now, at some point, we have to look at Lincoln Riley and say, what's the expectation? And quite simply, has it been met? The answer is no. The answer has been no every single season, if you ask me, compared to what the expectation is. And now the fact that we're just willing to sit here and say, well, maybe they can be one of the better teams in the Big Ten. That's not what the reputation of Lincoln Riley was supposed to be bringing to USC. Caroline, I don't see any way you can look at the actual results on paper and not deem Lincoln Riley's time at USC a failure and not, frankly, deem Lincoln Riley so far as a head coach as a failure for USC.
Because you don't pay for those kinds of results. We've had 3 consecutive champions from the Big Ten, and USC hasn't even sniffed any of those teams. USC has hardly even been in the conversation. And I think that when he was hired is very important. He was hired for the 2022 season. So he and Brian Kelly were both hired just months after NIL became legal. So they both walked into these new respective, football programs, both with massively high expectations and a time when college football was changing drastically. The transfer portal rules were changing. So all of the success that Brian Kelly had at Notre Dame and all of the undeniable success that Lincoln Riley had at Oklahoma is almost insignificant, because they had that success in a totally and completely different college football world. Being a college football coach that can have success in the NIL era, in the transfer portal era, that's a different proof of concept than what you were able to do pre-2021 and pre-2022, pre-NIL, pre-transfer portal, pre-modern era college football. So I don't want to hear, frankly, what Lincoln Riley was able to do at Oklahoma. I want to talk about what he hasn't been able to achieve at USC. Maybe Lincoln Riley is just not appropriately equipped to compete in the NIL era.
When the only reason you still have your job in the eyes of so many is that the buyout is too tough to swallow, then you have failed. That was not the expectation for Lincoln Riley, and you're so right when you talk about the eras of college football. This is a modern, new era of college football that, frankly, right now, if you had the choice as a prospect, if you had the choice of going to play for USC or going to play for Indiana, and the question is, who's more likely to get you to the pros and who's more likely to help you win at the highest possible level? The answer to that is clearly Curt Cignetti in Indiana. When you have been surpassed at that level and you're Lincoln Riley and USC, that's an inexcusable failing for a program that expected absolutely so much more. Again, absolute failure, and the only way they turn around is if they survive a gauntlet of a schedule this year in the Big Ten that most of us aren't really giving them a shooter's chance to do. Yeah, it's going to be a rough year for USC and a rough year for Lincoln Riley. We'll be talking about his buyout all year long. We'll be talking about everything right back with you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Thanks for watching Yahoo Sports Daily. Come back. See us again tomorrow.